She stepped into the narrow passage between the turnstiles and the metal detector frame, feeling the familiar cold glare of surveillance cameras against her skin. People crowded around her. Some checked their phones. Others hurried nervously, afraid of missing their departures. Trying not to miss the morning train, she moved forward confidently, restrained, like an ordinary airport passenger. But every step was calculated. Every glance. Every movement. Security noticed her immediately, her height, her posture. The confident stride. The eyes that carefully scanned the space. One of the young guards, clearly new to the job, approached with exaggerated importance and asked for her documents. "Documents are in order," she murmured, handing over her passport and pass. He skimmed the page quickly, unaware that the woman standing before him was no ordinary traveler, but a veteran with decades of special operations behind her. "You may proceed, but we'll have to conduct a standard screening," he said, a faint threat in his voice. She nodded calmly, as if agreeing without resistance. Inside her, however, there was no fear. No doubt. She knew this control was merely a formality, and that any attempt to intimidate or humiliate her would end exactly as she intended. As she passed through the metal detector, the alarm sounded. The guard tensed. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We'll need to conduct a personal screening," he said, trying to maintain control. She smiled softly. A faint glint in her eyes betrayed her inner confidence. For most people, this moment brings anxiety. For her, it was routine. She raised her hands calmly like any ordinary passenger awaiting instructions. One of the more experienced guards noticed the rookie's uncertainty and stepped in. "Wait. Let me handle this," he said, moving toward her with confidence. "All right," she replied evenly, never losing control. Inside her mind, every outcome was already calculated. Who to neutralize first. How to respond to resistance. How to minimize damage, especially to them. She was prepared for any scenario, while appearing completely ordinary. The guard began a standard pat-down, but her reaction was instantaneous. A subtle shift of her hand. A look filled with resolve and quiet authority. He froze. She used presence alone, a precise blend of tone, posture, and gaze, to command control without force. Another guard approached to assist, unaware of who stood before them. He saw only a calm, compliant woman. His task was simply to follow protocol. She turned her head slightly, noting every movement. Her body was ready to react instantly. If the threat escalated, she would act faster than any of them could think. "This is just a standard procedure," one of them began. "I understand the rules. I'm ready for the inspection," she said quietly, but with unshakable certainty. Her voice and posture commanded respect they did not expect. When they asked her to step into a small room for further screening, she complied without resistance, maintaining the image of an ordinary passenger. Inside, she assessed the space instantly: camera positions, doors, exits, control points. The room was small. Hard walls. A few chairs. A metal table. Surveillance cameras. One guard attempted to assert authority. "We'll conduct the inspection now. Cooperate and it'll be quick," he said, unaware he was speaking to someone trained for high-stress combat scenarios. She raised her hands higher, showing full compliance, while her eyes measured every angle, every object, every possibility. To them, it was routine. To her, it was a simulation. "Please remove your outer clothing," he added. She moved smoothly, confidently. Every motion contained defensive mechanics. Every tilt of her head, every hand movement minimized threat and maximized control. Her experience allowed her to remain calm, focused, and unpredictable. One guard noticed her behavior and grew tense. She sensed it immediately and offered a soft smile, control without confrontation. They had no idea they were standing before an undercover Navy admiral, a person capable of reversing the situation in seconds. The tension lasted only moments. In those moments, she completed a full tactical analysis. Who was weak? Who was alert? Who posed potential danger? All while appearing completely compliant. When the inspection ended and no threat was found, she left the room calmly, as if nothing unusual had occurred. For her, it was a victory. She had maintained complete control while remaining invisible. Back in the waiting area, she once again became just another woman among many. But every muscle, every movement, every glance spoke of discipline forged over decades. She passed the guards, who would remember her as an ordinary traveler, never realizing they had just encountered a professional of the highest level. It was a lesson they would never forget. Never judge by appearance. True strength hides behind calm and confidence. And then she disappeared into the crowd as she walked deeper into the terminal. The rhythm of the airport returned, rolling suitcases, distant announcements, the dull hum of engines beyond the glass. To everyone around her, she was just another traveler moving toward her destination. No one noticed the way her eyes reflected every movement in her peripheral vision, or how her posture never truly relaxed. The security room was already behind her, but its presence lingered in her thoughts, not as a threat, but as a completed exercise. Every encounter like this reinforced a simple truth she had learned long ago: control did not require force. Control began in the mind. She adjusted her coat, blending into the crowd with deliberate ease. Her breathing slowed, measured. The adrenaline that had quietly sharpened her senses faded without leaving a trace. That, too, was training: enter calm, exit calm, leave nothing behind. Behind her, the guards exchanged glances. None of them spoke at first. There was no violation to report, no rule broken, no explanation they could put into words. Yet the tension remained, clinging to the room like a shadow. One of them replayed the moment she had looked at him, not aggressively, not defiantly, but with something far more unsettling: certainty. He couldn't explain why his hands had trembled. Another guard cleared his throat and muttered something about routine procedures, but the words felt hollow. They had followed protocol perfectly, and still felt as though they had been evaluated, measured, and dismissed. None of them knew why. She reached the edge of the waiting hall and paused briefly near a wide window overlooking the runway. Aircraft moved slowly across the tarmac, massive machines obeying precise instructions. She watched them with quiet familiarity. Order. Systems. Controlled motion. It was a language she understood fluently. Her reflection in the glass showed an unremarkable woman. Neutral expression. Simple clothing. No visible tension. Exactly as intended. What the reflection did not reveal were the years spent in environments where hesitation meant death, where silence carried weight, and where decisions were made in fractions of seconds. It did not show the countless operations executed under pressure, the lives protected, the conflicts ended before they began. She had learned early that the most dangerous individuals were never the loudest. Power did not announce itself. It observed. It waited. A boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. She turned away from the window and joined the flow of passengers once more. Each step was smooth, unhurried. No one followed her. No one stopped her. And yet, long after she disappeared from view, the feelings she left behind remained. In the security room, one guard finally spoke the thought none of them wanted to admit. She wasn't afraid. The others nodded silently. They would return to their duties. The day would continue. But something subtle had changed. A small crack in certainty. A reminder that appearances deceive, and that mastery often wears the simplest disguise. Outside, she stepped into the open air and inhaled deeply. Fresh. Clean. Free. The mission continued. And she moved forward, calm, unseen, and fully in control.